Hi, this is Andrea Wolford, founder of Sunny Stampin' Incorporated and Paper Crafters Library. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful friendship card. I'm going to start by stamping and embossing this medallion image 4 times onto a scrap of very vanilla cardstock using Tim Holtz Distress Embossing ink and gold embossing powder. Now, whenever I emboss, the first thing I do is take my embossing buddy and run it across my cardstock, and that's simply to remove the static so that my embossing powder only sticks to where I want it to stick. So I'm inking up my stamp in the Distress ink and stamping it onto my very vanilla cardstock piece. Now I prefer to work on one image at a time because that way the ink doesn't dry before I get to it. So I just find you get much cleaner embossing that way. So I've sprinkled on my gold embossing powder, and I'm now going to take my Ranger Heat It tool and heat it until it melts. Using my paper snips, I'm then going to take this image and cut along the scallops. And I'm cutting fairly close, so I'm not leaving very much of a border. I'm almost cutting right up against the embossed edge. And I'm going to cut out the whole thing, and then I'm going to do this 3 more times so that I have 4 of these gold embossed medallion pieces. So now that I've got my 4 medallions embossed and cut out, I'm going to continue on with the assembly of my card. So I have a piece of Baja Breeze cardstock that's 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I have 2 pieces of designer paper from Stampin' Up's Elegant Soiree collection. And these are 2 1/4 by 5 1/4 inches. And as you can see, it's the same pattern. I'm just using both sides. So I'm going to start by sticking the piece that has this blue pattern at the top of my Baja Breeze cardstock piece. And I just want to align it with the very top edge, like so. Now for this piece, I want to stick on my medallions before I stick this piece to my Baja Breeze cardstock piece. So I've placed a strip of adhesive along the back edge, and I'm now going to stick on my first medallion. And I'm starting with the medallion partially off of the designer paper because I just want it to look like a medallion border that's continuous. And the best way to achieve that effect is to have it starting off and working on, and then when it ends, you'll see we'll also have a partial medallion there at the end as well. Now, as I place the medallions, I'm looking at the approximate halfway point. And as you can see here, I'm also overlapping them slightly. So now that these pieces are stuck on, what I'm going to do is take this to my paper trimmer and I'm just going to trim it off on both sides. So this is what this piece now looks like. So I'm going to take my adhesive again, and then I'm going to stick this to the bottom of this Baja Breeze cardstock piece. So you can see this now overlaps the blue pattern. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a pleated ribbon border. And for that, I'm going to use my Baja Breeze seam binding. I'm going to start by taking a piece of my sticky strip, and I want to align it with the top edge of my designer paper. And then I'm just going to trim it at the end, like so. I'm also going to put a little bit of adhesive here at the back because I'm going to start by wrapping my ribbon piece around the back so that it's sticking to that adhesive that I have there. And then I'm going to peel the backing off of this sticky strip. as you can see, I'm keeping my ribbon on the roll, and I'm using the top of this circle here as a visual reference to make sure that my pleats end up being straight. So I'm sticking down about a 1/2 inch of the ribbon. And then you can use either snail adhesive or mini glue dots or even a dab of liquid glue to hold the pleat. My preference is mini glue dots. I find it's stronger than snail adhesive so that it holds the pleats better. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this ribbon and I'm going to fold it back on itself, and I'm making sure that I'm lining up the sides. So I'm sticking it to that mini glue dot, and then I'm going to take another mini glue dot and stick it to the underside of this piece. And then as I pull the ribbon end back down and over, I'm just letting it puff out a little bit, making sure the edges are aligned, and then I'm sticking it down to that mini glue dot. So you can see I've now got my first ribbon pleat. So how puffy the pleats end up depends on how tautly you're pulling your ribbon. So I'm now going to stick my ribbon, about a 1/4 inch worth of my ribbon, to this sticky strip, and I'm going to do this whole process again. I'm going to take another mini glue dot, put it on top, and then I'm going to fold this ribbon back, stick it to the mini glue dot, and then take another mini glue dot, stick it to the underside, and then I'm going to create my ribbon pleat. So once I got to the end of this ribbon pleat, I just trimmed my ribbon here so that there's about a 1/2 inch overhanging. And I'm going to use my adhesive again to stick this to stick the ribbon end to the back of this Baja Breeze piece of cardstock. Now the next thing I want to do is to take some of my Victoria crochet trim, and I'm just going to cut a piece that's about 3/4 of an inch bigger on either side. And I'm going to place some more of this adhesive at the back, and then I'm going to lay my crochet trim so that the top edge of the crochet trim butts up against my Baja Breeze seam binding ribbon. And then I'm going to wrap the ends around and stick it to the back, and you can see that it's stuck down like so. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this gold cord. Now this is a gold cord that Stampin' Up! Used to sell. They don't sell it anymore, unfortunately, but you can usually find gold cord at fabric supply stores. And I'm taking a piece that's about 5 inches, so I'm leaving 5 inches overhanging. I'm holding it now about 1.5 inches in from the right edge of the card, and then I'm going to work with this on the roll. I'm going to wrap it around once completely, and then I'm just going to grab it with my thumb as I wrap it around again a second time, and then I'm going to grab it with my thumb again, and now I'm going to unravel about another 5-inch piece and then trim it there. So now what I want to do is just hold on to these two ends and tie them in a knot. So I'm just going to gather the two ends and then tie a knot. Now in order to keep, well, here I've got a half knot. Before I tie the other half, in order to keep the cord from loosening, which it does have a tendency to do because it's so slippery, I'm going to take the tip of my snips and I'm just placing it over here where the knot is and using my thumb to hold it in place. It's a little bit awkward to do this, but it works if you don't have somebody to help you. And then I'm going to tie the ends, and you can see so far I've tied it around the tip of my scissors. And now I'm just going to pull my scissor tip out and then pull this taut. And I've now tied a knot in my cord, and it's still nice and taut around my cardstock. So I'm going to set that to the side for a moment because I want to create my tag. So I'm using the Stampin' Up! Tiny Tag stamp set and the Jewelry Tag Punch, and I'm also using Soft Suede Classic ink. So I'm using this greeting that's called Friends, And I'm inking it up in the soft suede, and I'm going to stamp it onto this scrap of Baja Breeze cardstock. And then I'm going to punch it out with this jewelry tag punch. And I'm going to take my 1/16 inch handheld circle punch, and I'm going to punch a hole at the top. And I just have to use my scissor tip to pry it off. It's so tiny, and whenever you punch holes through really tiny pieces, it'll have a tendency to get caught on the top of the punch. And then I'm going to take a tiny little piece of Stampin' Dimensional, and I'm just cutting a little bit off of the end. And I'm going to put that at the back of this piece. Now I'm not going to take the backing off quite yet, because what I want to do is I want to thread this onto one end of my gold cord. And then I'm going to tie the ends of my gold cord in a bow. And whenever you work with gold cord, it's very slippery. So you do have to, and then the bows have a tendency to come undone. So I do find that you kind of have to play with it a little bit before you get a bow that you're happy with. And then, because my tag is wanting to constantly slide to where I don't want it to be, that's where the dimensional comes in handy. So I'm peeling the backing off my dimensional, and then I'm just going to stick that down, and that is now being held in place. And I can go ahead and trim my cord. And as you can see, I'm leaving fairly long ends. So now all I need to do is finish up the card, and to do that, I'm just simply adding on my layers. So I'm going to center and stick this piece onto a piece of soft suede cardstock, and this piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I just want to stick it, leaving an even border all around. And then I'm going to stick this piece onto a very vanilla card, and this is simply a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of cardstock scored at 5 1/2 inches and folded in half to create a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. And then I'm just going to stick this piece onto that card front. If you enjoyed the way I teach and you'd like to learn even more, then I invite you to join the Paper Crafters Library. What is the Paper Crafters Library? It's an online library of paper crafting video tutorials. Whether your interest is in card making, scrapbooking, gifts and 3D items, or stamping, we teach you how to make the most of your products, we teach you new skills and techniques, and we share great project ideas.